Okay, I've been getting this question from my Discord over and over again, so I'm just going to make a video real fast to answer it because it's easier than trying to blog this or type it or anything else. And I thought, well, maybe the community would be interested in this device or interested in why I sort of paused doing F256 work and then started building a game here on the GameTank, which I'll show you here in a second. The main reason I switched is this is just for games, right? It has no implied peripherals that you're going to attach to this and say, oh, well, this is also a retro computer and it needs BASIC and it needs all this stuff. No, it's just a system that runs a cartridge. It has a very cool set of constraints to it, which you can probably read on your screen. The coolest part, I think, is the fact that this is a blitter-based double 128 by 128 frame buffer. Having a screen resolution of 128 by 128 means you're pretty much in the 8 by 8 or 16 by 16 sprite range to be comfortable. You have 200 colors that aren't changeable. That LUT, as far as I know, is not editable. There may be a way, like you may be able to fudge with memory addresses and get it to work, but leaving that limitation alone makes it a lot more interesting to work on because the palette's not bad. It really isn't that bad. It has a dedicated audio coprocessor, which means it's capable of running some pretty complex media and that kind of other stuff. The best part is it's fully open source, and you could build this thing right now if you want. You can develop for this in assembly, but the C SDK is a little bit more mature than assembly, but it's easier to deal with. And then there is a Rust SDK, and if anybody knows me, I don't care. Like I'm not writing Rust anytime soon. I'm a diehard C and C++ person. I'm not going over there. So that being said, I like these type of challenges. I don't like having the sky's the limit, make whatever you want, because then your scope is always ridiculous. If you can make something fit within a 128 by 128 screen and inside the memory constraints that this thing has, which you could probably find here in the programming manual. I don't know if it says what the max on a cartridge is, but the memory maps are in here and everything else. But for the most part, if you can live within these constraints and design within these constraints, you can make games that a single person can easily deliver. And you can see people do it all the time. I mean, this product doesn't technically have a release yet. They are trying to crowd supply it, and we got 36 days left. It's not looking good. I hope it does, but the odds are who knows at this point. But yeah, so let me show you like just one of the many constraints. 128 by 128 doesn't seem like much, and then you start saying, well, I want to port my version of Pyramid Solitaire over to it. And so what that means is I have to find a sprite configuration that I'll actually fit on the screen for the tableau or the layout that I'm trying to do. So in this case, it's Pyramid, and I can show it to you. The screen will hop down here. I'm sorry about that. In this case, it's Pyramid, and you notice the bottom row of the tableau for a Pyramid deal has 7 cards. Obviously, 8 will fit, but 8 would be butted up against the side of the screen. So I had to make a design decision and say, okay, well, 16 by 16 is probably the furthest I can go. And then 16 by 16, this is the best that some of the cards can look in a quick, run through on a sprite. So, oh, by the way, this is playable. The next thing I had to worry about is there's no keyboard on a GameTank. So I have a controller and 3 buttons, which means I have up, down, left, right have to function, and I have 3 buttons. So in my case, I have one that I have to select with. In this case, ignore the key presses on emulating a controller. If I screw up and I select 2, I have to have a button to reset that, or I can auto reset it. I haven't decided which way I'm going to go yet, but for right now, I just have a reset key. And then I need a button to flip the bottom card, right? I think this is pseudo random, so I know there's an 8 coming up. There it is. And I can select the 8. And there we go. I also know that right now that King of Spades is wrong, otherwise it should go away, which tells me there's an order problem in my frame ordering. But anyway, this is not these are not sprites. Well, technically they are, but these are not hardware sprites being drawn on the screen. This is the screen being drawn over and over and over again. You can see that selector that's on the screen is actually changing color on it's randomly changing on every frame hit. And if we look, I can actually show you the double buffer in action because this emulator has this great feature, which is a virtual RAM viewer. It pops up on the wrong screen. But here you can see all my sprite sheets loaded, included a font one because I loaded text. It didn't work for me and I just haven't removed it. But here you can see frame buffer 1 and frame buffer 0 and the double buffering flipping between the two, drawing the entire screen and how fast it is. It's ridiculously fast. That blitter is. We can close that. I don't know if it's going to kill my game or not. There's also a lot of tools you can use in here, as well as there's a way to change the palette to full contrast. I kind of like the way this looks better in a full contrast palette. Anyway, long story short, you have to think about the design very carefully. But this SDK is pretty amazing, right? If you follow their instructions, I say it's Clyde's. If you follow Clyde's instructions on how to do the A-Sprite workflow, he shows you down here in the bottom how to export these sheets as both a BMP and JSON. If you put that in this specific directory, where he says to put it and follow the instructions, and you do, like, we can actually make it clean here real fast and say make import. You'll see that make import will actually go through that directory and then generate all these asset macros for you. So that when it actually comes time to use these in your source, you don't have to mess with them individually. Instead, we go down here where I actually load them, right? It'll actually provide these macros for you so that you can load them. And then later you can actually draw each individual frame using them, right? In this case, my frame is actually being dictated by where the card's being held, but you get the point. This SDK is amazingly easy to use. If you want to know if you can do something, the entire SDK is right here in the GT directory. If you want to, for instance, say, well, I don't understand how text works, you can literally click over here and just look, right? This is probably the most easiest SDK I've ever used in my life for creating a game, next to Raylib. Raylib is pretty darn simple if you get the right template, but this is ridiculously simple. And then here is the main loop. For instance, when you first grab actually, we can look at that. Let's look at that. When you first grab the SDK link and you open it, it's a fully functioning display right here. In this case, they're just moving some boxes around the screen. We can look at it. Oh, actually, you gotta make clean and make emulate real fast. Oh, I'm not in that. Sorry. We could take a look at this real fast and look at what it is. So as soon as you grab this SDK off of GitHub, this is what you get, with a bouncing ball thing. And you're just basically going to take and wipe out this center. If you want to think of this like an engine, like you would normally download or use, or a framework you would normally use, up here above the main is where your init would be. Your update could occur probably anywhere before the screen's being cleared. And then your draw is in this area right here. And then this section down here is basically just waiting for all the draw queue items to go off if they're queued. And of course, there's your vsync. So there's like your NMI. And yeah, and that's the way it works. The flip pages command, of course, is the final thing that says, okay, I want you to flip this buffer to the active one. And they just sit there and they flip back and forth. You just saw it a minute ago. Yeah, I did show it. So that's how simple. And you just start from here. And this is your base level SDK. Everything's in here already. In the assets folder, there's a default that shows you a couple of examples of things you could put in there. And there you go, right? You just get started from there. It doesn't get much simpler than that. And that's why I love this thing so much, is it simplified everything. Now, do I think it's going to go anywhere? Maybe. I'm not sure. We're only a week in now, and it's 25% funded. In theory, 4 weeks from now, it could be 100%, but I don't see a whole, I would have anticipated this would have gone phew, like all the interest that's on the Discord and everything else. You think it would have shot way up and it didn't. I don't know. You never know with crowdsource stuff. But for sure, it's a really neat project. It's fun to develop for. And, you keep polishing. One day I'll put my game right up here or I'll put it on itch.io and that'll be it, right? It's just something fun to do. And you can see there's a lot of people that's been developing just very simple games for this thing or porting existing ones they have over just because it's easy to do so. But the point is, this type of constraint is more closely aligned with something like, Pico 8 or the, Beep 8 or something like that. And that's what makes it so fun to deliver for. Mainly, I'm not having to deliver for something that also has a mouse, that also has this. You could plug in any joystick you want into it. And, this case, what you're going to get. You're going to get 4-button or 4-direction D-pad. You're going to get 3 buttons. At least I think that's all you're going to get out of your puck. We could look real fast. Look at that. I may be talking out of my ass. Up, down, left, right, ABC, start. This is all you get, right? You could probably code diagonals if you wanted to, because he does give you buttons now, buttons before, and new buttons that are pressed. So in between those three, they can show you the state. Yeah, you could implement diagonals. So, I'm talking out of my ass. You could absolutely implement diagonals. But my point being, these controls are all you get. And your game has to function under this constraint, right? There's no keyboard control. There's no, someone may plug a mouse in. There's no, right? So that makes this incredibly easier to develop for than some of the alternatives. Now, that being said, if something like, well, it shouldn't be going to, it shouldn't be going to their page. It should be going to Wild Bits. If something like the Phoenix itself got a little bit better and maybe had a CC65 toolchain for it. It does have the LLVM MOS toolchain, but I'm going to tell you right now, my love for this is very limited. I actually do have a project in here. I can't show it to you. I don't have the Phoenix plugged in or the 256 plugged in right now, but it's not as intuitive, nor is it sort of enjoyable to write it. And that, I know that's subjective, but it's just, I don't know. There's something about the GameTank SDK that makes this type of stuff enjoyable. And if you're coming from something like Raylib, you'll definitely get it. The downsides are, if it's not in this GT folder library, you have no access to it. And that means you have no access to STDIO, standard IO, which means you can't print debugging console information in Emulator. It's really hard to do breakpoints and that type of stuff. Now, he does go into a way to do this where you create a blank breakpoint message, or function, basically. You put that in your code and you go into the emulator debugger and find it. And it works okay, but this is like an extra step that you need to be aware of when you're writing, especially if you're writing stuff that's moving a lot of stuff around, like I have some places where keeping things simplest to arrays is difficult because I have a board of card numbers, and then I have a selection set of bit flags. Select is a multidimensional array of bytes, which are bit flags that indicate whether something's selected, whether it's not, this kind of stuff. When something goes wrong inside here, it's not as easy as going down and putting a breakpoint somewhere and figuring out like, hey, well, where did this mess up? Instead, uh, and you can't print anything to the output. So it kind of can get wonky on you trying to debug. I think I've finally pulled all those bitwise checks out. I have, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying that debugging on a 6502 gets progressively harder. Um, it's the same when you're developing for any retro console, really, which is why basic is so healthy, is because you can like you can actually see the value of the verb. And then I got to end this somehow. Anyway, yeah. So that's what I've been up to. I've just been working on my solitaire game inside the GameTank. And for those that were interested, this has just been a high level overview of what it is and how it works. I will see you guys on the flip.